Hello, and welcome to another edition of Spoken Voices. We're glad you can join us.
Hello, everyone.
And again, we're at home because of
coronavirus.
And we hope to be back in the studio soon. And I hope it's just not wishful thinking. I hope we are going to get back in there soon. Again, I'm joined by my wife, the producer of this show, Maribel Brooks. And she said hi already. What are we doing today?
Let's talk about parenting. You know, I was thinking about how important it is to talk about parenting. There's a lot of families that, some families, not all, because there's beautiful families. And then there's other families that, you know what, I think that we should talk about that are going through a lot of things during this time, this quarantine, families that, that they haven't seen their loved ones. I haven't seen my granddaughter for almost 2 months. And it's sad. I haven't seen her or heard from her. And I don't know anything about her. And my son is, he's experiencing a hard time,
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, please explain why, and then let us make sure that we note that it's not Adam, your son. Our son, it's not him.
I'm sure there's so many young fathers and also mothers who have children, and they may be going through some kind of divorce, or they may be going through some separation. They may be having some little disputes. And it's sad that other families have to suffer from that. They don't hear from the babies, especially a grandmother like me. I haven't heard from my granddaughter for 2 months, and I don't think that's fair because we came from Richmond to come to be closer to the family, and of course now we have to deal with this quarantine. And it would be nice if the mother could be nice enough to Skype and let me see and find out if they're doing good, if they're okay, because Adam, he's just. He hasn't heard from his daughter for 2 months, and he's trying to get a hold of his ex-wife, and apparently, I don't know, she's just not responding, and it's sad. And I say, let's put a show, let's put a little show, and let's talk about parenting. It's very important that we teach our children right. We don't want to make mistakes. So many of us, we're angry, we get upset, and it's hard now that we're going through this quarantine that we have to experience those things. And this is a time where we should just, why can't we get along? Why can't we just...
We don't, most of the time, and we're not the exception, and we're not an anomaly, and your situation is not. I'm very sure there's a lot of people out here going through the same thing.
Yeah.
And very rarely is it the other way around where the father has the child.
Yeah, but there's fathers who support, if they're supporting their kids, as far as, through the court system, right? I mean, they should have the right to.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. The balance is not fair all the time. Because once someone has custody of a child, if you're not under the mindset that you're going to co-parent, then your mindset is, I'm going to do devious stuff to get back at somebody who I happen to be mad at. And at the end result is never you really paying for it the way that your child will. Yeah. Your child is going to pay for that because of whatever grievances you may have with the other parent. And I always say that I was lucky, and I don't even know if it's luck or whatever. I just happened to have 2 good parents that stayed together until my dad passed away early in life. He passed away when he was 40. But I had the fortune enough to have been with him for the first 13 years of my life. He was a great father, and my mother is still with us, thank God. And she's one of the greatest mothers that anybody could ever have. And I look at life through that prism, right? I look at parenting through the prism that my mother and father gave me to look through. So that's how I parent. And if you don't come from that, if you come from a home that was chaotic and broken and there was animosity and going on till the day you get older, then it causes, to me, I know, and I'm not a psychiatrist, but it causes problems with a child.
Yeah.
And that flows into the point where they become an adult. What kind of parent will someone be if they come from a home that was dysfunctional?
Mm-hmm.
There's always, because as great as my father was, to us, and to my mom, he still had issues because he came from a situation where his mother and father weren't the greatest people in the world. My grandparents were not the greatest people in the world. Mm-hmm. I loved my grandmother to death, but she had issues that carried on throughout her life that affected my father in a negative way. And my having seen that, too, dictated how I was going to be as a parent and as a grandparent, because we project either negative or positive energy to people.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was when I was raised by a very, very violent man. And thank you for the grace of God. I'm not that person. I'm not like him. I mean, there's so many things that I've been through as a child, but that happened many years ago. I always promised myself that I want to be a good mom. So I was passionate and I dedicated my time to raise these 3 kids as a single parent. And unfortunately, they saw domestic violence, but they were just a baby. So I decided to leave. My family didn't know anything about it because I have family who didn't care about me, and they didn't care to even ask how I'm doing. So I was I was just on my own. But my time was to dedicate to the kids, train them well, try to talk to them. I was the number one disciplinary parent. And my thing was to make sure that they become good fathers, good men. But sadly to say, when your kids grow up, they don't listen. Some of them, they stray and they become disobedient. They don't want to listen to you. And I was the type of person that I always had my meetings. I will always have that Monday meetings with these kids because I needed to find out, who you're talking to, who you're hanging out with, and what you're doing. And I used to stay at 4:00 in the morning with a bat. Yeah, with a bat upstairs, waiting for one of my kids to show up at 4:00 in the morning. Now, come on. I went through a lot with these knuckleheads, just the 2 first ones. The baby, he was, he was really good. I guess because he saw everything, so he was the smartest one. But, it was tough. It was hard for me. And, I want to train them and help them to become good men, and their father, that's a different story. He wasn't a disciplinary one. I was. He was more fun. Let's go hang out. Let's go, let's go just have fun. I'll give you presents. I'll give you all the gifts, and that type of upbringing till this very day, it's no good because now that they're adults, they don't know how to deal with.
But you have to be balanced
with the difficulties in life.
You have to be balanced too, because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, you can't be all disciplinary. You have to be able to be also that person who wants to go out and have fun and have family time and whatnot.
Yeah, but you want to sit down with your kids and you want to talk to them. And you know what a lot of parents don't do? I'm going to tell you what a lot of parents don't do. A lot of parents don't talk about their history. A lot of parents don't talk about their childhoods because it's hurtful and it's painful and it's secret. People don't want to talk about it. But you know what? If you don't learn from your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And I say that because it's true. When we grow up as adults, we don't see some of the things that we say or do because we're so consumed with so many different things. Stress, we're working and we got our daily lives. Well, guess what? Your children are watching you. They see how you're treating them, talking to them. And if you're the type of parent who's working 24 hours a day and you give them all the presents and all the money and the phone, you give them all these things, and you don't sit down with your son to at least to acknowledge and communicate and talk, you're going to have issues. You're going to have serious issues because your son is going to grow up to resent you, or your daughter, whoever. I just truly believe that a parent should be able to communicate and talk. And talk about your old history, talk about your history, talk about your childhood, so that it doesn't move to the next new generation. You tell your son, and you talk to you train your kid. I'll make this very short. You tell them, be careful, be wise, be careful who you get involved with. Be careful what you're doing out there, because that one spare moment is going to cost you for the rest of your life. And sadly to say, this young generation, it's all about them first, and you know what, parenting, again, is so important to communicate, talk it out, so that, they can have a bright future, and I believe every child on earth has a bright future. So just some of them who have bright futures is because, they have spent that time, quality time with their parent, talk to them, and parenting is a very, very serious job. It's serious, because it's so hard.
It's the most serious job that you will ever have. My thing is this, and I hope people understand this. You have to be able to parent. And then as your kids get older, you have to also understand how you felt at their age. Mm-hmm. If you look at your child as a 16, 17-year-old kid, and you wonder why they are doing certain things, and you can't look back in your life unless you lived a Puritan life, that you lived in a convent somewhere with monks, and you did stupid things too, right? It's the degree of stupid. What's the degree of stupid that you did? Because I don't know about anybody else. Me growing up and being in high school and doing I've done some dumb things. Mm-hmm. So when my son or daughter would do something stupid, I would always temper what I would tell them with the knowledge that I know why you're doing this, right? I too was a young fool at one time. Wow. I too, I do never, and me as a father, mm-hmm. as a person, I never held myself in such high regard to say, do as I say, not as I do. Because I'm not stupid enough to believe that they're going to adhere to that thing. Mm-hmm. And yes, I've always been honest with my kids.
See, that's good.
I've been honest with them. I told them the stuff that I've done and whatnot, and said, that was stupid. Mm-hmm. Don't repeat my stupid thing, the stupid things that I did.
One thing that
because I'm honest.
Yeah, one thing that I know that I've never done is take sides. I don't take sides with these boys. None of them is my favorite. None of them. Mm-hmm. And it's sad that one of them believed that the other is my favorite, and he's not. My thing is that when you have more than one child, every child has a different personality, and you go accordingly to the child's personality. And those parents who understand what I'm saying, they understand exactly what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. You discipline your kid according to how you see them, how you know
who they are,
for who they are. Yes. Thank you, honey. Mm-hmm. So, and what I'm trying to get at is that when we, as we were little, child growing up, we see certain things that our parents did. And then what happens? It rubs on us. And then the things that we do, we say it rubs on our kids, mm-hmm. And I try to be very careful with that, because again, I come from a very violent environment, and thank you, God, that I've never shown that to my kid. Oh yeah, there were times where I had to get the chancleta and say, hey, you're going to listen to what I got to say, because that's the Puerto Rican in me. So anyway, going back to reality, that was back then in the early 80s. I had to be really tough with my boys, because I didn't want my boys to get involved in drugs. I didn't want them to get into gangs. And it was hard for me, for a single woman, and yeah, back then, yeah, I'm not embarrassed. I was on welfare, and it was a very hard, difficult time, and yeah, I'm not embarrassed. I wasn't living in a shelter, because again, I went to domestic violence. So you see, it repeats. it repeats itself. And I'm so proud that I'm able to go visit these shelters as an advocate, not now, but when I did go, I was able to help these young women and their families and say, hey, teach your daughters and teach your sons to be able to ask questions.
Right.
Especially when you have a teenager or a young adult, maybe someone out there has experienced something with a young adult and you want to find a way how to get through your son or daughter because you see something that you don't want your son or daughter to get involved with. So how do you deal with that? So all you got to do is just teach your kids to ask questions. How do you treat your mother? How's the relationship with the family? How's the relationship with taking care of pets? We have to learn how to communicate. Again, parents sit down with their children and communicate and talk to them so that their future can be better. Get them involved with sports, keep them busy with their mind, because I remember when the kids were younger, I used to say to them, leave the girls alone. The girls are trouble. You leave them alone. They still think they want, it's just simple little things that I try to help my boys. Unfortunately, they love girls. So unfortunately,
that's not unfortunately. It's just human nature.
No, what I'm trying to say is that, sometimes as parents, you want, you do your best and you work so hard, and no, I'm not saying my kids are not, they're in a bad situation. Thank you God, they're all talented and they're moving on with their life, but sometimes as parents, we have to be careful. We still want to communicate and we still want to, we can't tell them what to do, but we can guide them and tell them how much we love them, But like I said, we have to be careful and we need to communicate with these children because we don't want them to get into some situation with another family. All I'm saying is to make it simple, just be able to communicate. That's important. Communication.
It is. And communication is true with anything, with any walk of life, anything that you're doing, that communication is the utmost importance. And another thing that's always bothered me is as I got older and became a parent, the articles that read, and there seems to be this misconception in the world, especially in the United States, that Black and Latino fathers are not in their kids' life. And that bothers me. That bothers me as a father, because I know that I am not an anomaly. I know that my father wasn't, and we seem to get the short end of the stick when it comes to being parents, especially being fathers, right? So I always like to put it out there and say, if you ask the kids, am I a good father? And they say, yes, he was always there for me. I am not the only person in the United States, the only Black man in the United States that is a good father. We are good fathers. We do come from, a lot of us come from backgrounds, like my dad came from a background and he was a good father, that you have to overcome adversity. And in our community, you can go, if people would take the time to go in our community and look at our fathers, the men that are doing their job, like our sons do their job with their children, you would see, wait a minute. No, that's a misnomer. That's not true. They are good fathers. They are in their kids' life, whether you're with the mother or not. Because that whole baby mama nonsense that goes on, that's a running joke for a lot of people, Black, white, Hispanic, whatever. That's that mama, the mama's, baby mama drama and all that other stuff like that. That's a joke that I feel falls flat, right? There are people who don't stay together and have kids, but parent excellently. They're excellent parents. They're just not together. We get divorced just like everyone else gets divorced. We have kids out of wedlock just like anybody else has kids out of wedlock. We are good fathers. what happens as a father is that you have to continue to be a father or mother for the rest of your life. Mm-hmm. Those good mothers and fathers realize that and realize this person will be my responsibility to a certain point after they get a certain age. But at the end of the day, that is still your child.
Yeah. I was just, I didn't mean to cut you off, sweetheart. I was just thinking about those parents who right now they're quarantined and they haven't heard or they don't know anything about their children because, you just never know. Maybe, some of them are going through separation or divorce and their mates are upset with the other mate. And so they're going to use their kids as weapons and they're not going to allow their kids, the babies, to Skype or block the other mate because they're angry. And it's sad because now you're teaching your kid another generation. You know what I'm saying? And
that's not a good parent, though.
It's a
bad parent.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is I feel bad for those who are going through depression and anxiety this time. Because they were all locked up. So, how do parents? How do they share their kids? Because I'm sure they have both homes. Yeah. And so are you trustworthy enough to take, have the baby go with daddy or mommy to stay together? How do they work with that?
How do they co-parent?
Yeah, and it's sad, and especially those parents who don't want to communicate, and that's
it's easy to co-parent.
Yeah, if you're smart, and
you don't even have to be smart. You just got to have common sense.
Well, okay.
What do I want from my child? Mm-hmm. Right? What do I want from my child? Do I want the as much love, as much support in that child's life as much as they can get? Right? Mm-hmm. If you deny love and support of another parent, of another family that can love your child too, you can have total disdain for a person.
Yeah, but
Listen what I'm about to say, though. Mm-hmm. You can have total disdain for another person. But if you look at your child and see that child has pure love for that person and that person has pure love for their child, you're doing that child such a disservice if you don't allow that child to have that love from the other parent.
Yeah, but that's because of
what right do you have to do that?
That's because of the parent upbringing. Because
the parents. I'm sorry to cut you off, but there are certain parents who raise their kids to do that, and the kid is just an idiot. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
It's not always the parents of the person that's doing it that's the bad people. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just the person themselves. We got a lot of defective human beings walking around.
Yeah, I understand.
In our case, though, in our son's case, right, it is a parent thing.
Yeah.
It's their parent. It's her parents being,
I just, again, you just got to be careful who you get involved with, children, adults, young adults, you're going to get married. Just, you
don't
got to.
Have kids right away.
Yeah, I don't. And I remember saying that. Don't have kids.
No, because
be smart.
That's a roadblock.
But,
yeah,
I got my beautiful little granddaughter,
that we can't see.
Yeah, that we can't see.
But so it's like,
that's sad.
You have to take time. And
then what happens? What happens? Then they say that us grandmothers, we don't get involved. Hello, it's sad. We want to get involved, but when the other party don't want the grandmother involved or the baby,
or grandparent.
They don't want me involved. Then don't talk about me because I don't know what's going on. But and it's sad. And I love the fact that we have this platform that we're able to voice our opinions, and that if there's anyone out there who is going through something like this, when you want to hear, a parent, a father, if you want to talk, give us a call at, just email us. Email us at spokenvoicescommunitytv@gmail.com. And, we would love to hear from you guys and and maybe try to support you guys and say, hey, don't give up on your kids.
It's something
they're
that
going to get bigger, and then they're going to say, oh, where were you?
It has to be said too.
It's sad that these kids got to suffer.
It has to be said too, that don't give up. Take the right way.
Yeah.
And I tell everybody this. Take the right way. Take the the recourses that you need to legally. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of times it's a trap to have you overreact, to record you acting like a complete and utter buffoon in front of your daughter, your son, or whomever, to capture you in a stupid moment and use that against you. And that sets you back. And I'm telling all the fathers out there who may be going through this, you must be consistent and you must do things legally the right way. Yeah. If you try to take matters in your own hand, go out of your mind and yelling and screaming on the phone, you're being recorded.
Yeah.
You go to your ex-wife or your girlfriend's house and go ballistic, you're being recorded. You're never going to see your kid, or it's going to be a long time before you do. There's judges and people in the court system that will help you if you document everything that you're doing and you're a good person and you're trying to be a good father. Mm-hmm. And we wish that this would never happen, but it does.
Yeah.
And we want you guys to take care and realize what's going on.
And those who are young, and if you guys are listening to our talk show, again, listen to your parents. When your parents talk to you and they tell you something, listen to them. And especially when they say, show me who your friends are, and I will tell you your future. So be careful who you associate with. Be careful who you get involved with. A lot of young kids, they do whatever they want to do, and they don't want to listen to their parents. And then they fall into a situation that they can't handle. So again, there's resources and there's ways to do certain things. And again, be smart.
And that's the end of our show. And again, we appreciate you guys tuning in. And as I always say, man makes plans, God smiles. And we hope you guys are doing good in this pandemic and everything like that. And we hope to see you soon.
Yes.
Take care.
Thank you.
Goodbye.